Hello, divine, beautiful souls. This is Energy Speaks podcast with your host, Katriel. This season, we are embarking on the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series, and we are now at Aries. And for Aries, we're all about taking inspired action and also navigating the many different personalities of the Aries energy, which we will be really discussing today. We have a very special guest here. He is our practitioner for Aries online class. His name is Julio Zavala. He is a Steel Mace Flow coach, and I'm just so grateful to have you here, bro. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, man. And thank you most importantly for allowing me to be part. This is everything you're doing is really unique. So happy to be part of it.
With honor and pleasure. So I wanna get to know you more. Honestly, I don't know a ton about you, so this is kind of
Yeah.
cool as I'm finding more about you, our audiences as well.
Yeah, right on, right on. Yeah, I mean that was an awesome connect. Gary connected us, who was also part of the series as well. That was a
Leo.
Yep, yeah, that was a fun one. She's awesome person.
Yeah.
But yeah, she recommended me to yeah we connect and we talked a little bit and found out that we were able to find some things that aligned with what we're doing right now. So
Amazing. It's amazing.
mhm,
So
yeah.
how did you get on this path of like, well, one, spirituality, and two, how does that connect with Steel Mace Flow?
Oh man,
I know,
you're really
right?
just going right into it, man. That's awesome.
Scorpio, man.
Uh,
Zoom.
you know, for for anyone that for any of the people that I know in the Steel Mace Flow community, I mean, they understand like the gravity of that question, and just not even necessarily spirituality, but it's just that inner battle, right? Um, personally, I got into Steel Mace Flow. It was one of the things I got into during the pandemic. Um, there's obviously everything was shut down, and I was looking for things that allowed me to stay home and be able to move. I could go to a gym, and luckily, there were parks and stuff around here that were open, so I was able to really dive into a lot of cycling and things like that. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I was looking for something that some sort of resistance thing that I could do at home, so I could only really think of, oh man, I don't want to build this whole like setup of like dumbbells and stuff and get all this equipment in here. And uh, that was part of what turned me away from it in the past, right? And didn't
Yeah.
want to clutter the area that I had and things of that nature. Um, so I remember uh, I started listening to Aubrey Marcus during that time, and his podcasts and the stuff that he was getting into. And yeah, I know, totally one one of those guys, right? But
I watched
uh
something is pretty by him. It's pretty deep.
yeah, I mean he's just you know you just going out and having these conversations that I think helps expand different ways of thinking, right?
Yeah.
Particularly in things that a lot of people shy away from talking about, quite frankly. But
Yeah.
I digress.
It's
Uh,
okay.
yeah, so through that, he owned a company called On It, and I was interested in what this company was because I remember seeing On It back in the Facebook, when I had Facebook, early in the Facebook days, when it was just one of those companies that were you didn't know it was a scam or not, you know. Uh, so I remember seeing On It in places. So I looked it up and I was like, okay, kettlebells. I know what kettlebells are. They had Indian clubs as well, and then they had these things called a steel mace, and I was like, "What is that?" Um, you know, yeah, It honestly it 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 blew my mind. And when I started looking into different workouts, and a lot of them were a little bit more tied into conventional ways of working out, and reps, and uh very technical based, and a lot of swinging, 360 swings, things of that nature. But then I stumbled upon Steel Mace Flow, and uh, I knew almost immediately. I was like, okay, that's what I want to be doing in my little space here in my backyard. Um, I could, I looked up different things about it, people talking about it, because in my mind I was like, okay, you got to go heavy. That's the conventional way of thinking, right? Like, especially,
Mm,
as a man, you know, missing the gym, and you got to go heavy. And I was just listening to people, and people I was following on social at the time, and uh, uh they're saying 10 pounds was enough. I remember distinctly hearing that. And so I was like, all right, I'll try it out with the 10. It was only like 40 something bucks at the time. Uh, I got it and started playing with it. And I was like, okay, this doesn't necessarily feel like 10 pounds right now, but I also didn't know what I was doing either. Right.
right.
So I got into different modalities, and just copying people online, things like that. Obviously at the time, many of us were still working from home. My wife was still working from home. I was starting to get back into the swing of going there physically, but the amount of time there was much shorter, right? So everyone had a lot of time uh, during those days, early or late, especially mid to late 2020, right? Uh, um, so I leaned in. I leaned into the skill based stuff. I knew for me it was something that I knew I needed to get back into my life, and I felt like the time that was spent, quite frankly, you know, here at home, I decided to take advantage of it, uh, and really work on myself. I was my wife was pregnant with my firstborn son through much of the lockdown pandemic, and uh, so my mind was fully prepared, like, to take on that responsibility. So
Mm,
it was in order for me to be the best father uh for my son, and the best possible partner for my wife, best possible person. I got to work on myself, and I really committed to doing that year. And thankfully, it's sustained quite a bit. So, um, but initially at the time, what I was also dealing with was the loss of my mother.
mm.
So
Sorry.
we lost her in January 2019. Oh, thank you, brother. Lost her in January 2019, and it had been a year. At this time, we were just starting to hear, like, this virus is in China, it's spreading. We didn't think much of it, right? But the uh, that extra time definitely allowed us to find what worked for us, both with a diet, food, and for me, it was physical activity. Um, and when I found out that, using this thing in the history of the steel mace, uh, it it opened up this whole new meaning. It wasn't just going into a gym where I was mindlessly, like, trying to find things to do, right? Or have to make a plan out the entire thing. Um, it also allowed me to start journaling, and within flow, for those that understand any sort of flow, uh, or take part in ecstatic dance, right? That is also flow. Things through movement stir you, and then they move you. um, and for this, and for that space to be opened up, to be able to come up with some of these flows, but also attach that healing element to it, and attach meaning to the movements and the sequences and the patterns, and exploring patterns that start one way, and then there's 100 different ways to exit it, right? And um, you just keep going down the rabbit hole with any sort of flow aspect, and for me, I was able to find flow through Steel Mace, and um, uh, but it also allowed me to really focus on that healing aspect with the loss of my mother. Um, and I was able to move physically through it, and also move out energies, so that's what makes it so much fun for me now, and still, because it may not be necessarily about centered around that my mother, and healing from that loss, but just what I'm doing throughout the day. If I had a if I had a rough day at work, sometimes I'll that's the other thing about it too. You can take it literally anywhere. It's like a full gym that you can take absolutely anywhere. I keep one in my car, and most mace enthusiasts are gonna definitely be keeping maces tucked away in very random places. So, um, so it's a and that's also so appealing is you literally get to take it wherever you want.
It's awesome. So, like, well, first of all, do you have a mace with you right
I
now?
do. I do. I do. There you
I
go.
would love for you to share. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So this is a steel mace, and this is a 10 pound. It is an offset tool that the weight is on one side, and then there's a relatively long handle that allows you to wield it. Now this is based off of uh, something called a gada. That was used in ancient Persian times as a weapon, or Hindus used to use it, but um, it was a bamboo stick essentially with a stone tied on top of it. It was used for battering in war. So uh, so oftentimes you find yourself in some of these positions where it feels like you're taking a swing at something. But it's but it really promotes stability. It promotes um, obviously it's resistance training as well. But it's really whatever you want it to be. If it's uh, this thing is literally a fully it's more tied into like a functional fitness where it's centered a little bit more toward ability, movement, and things like that. For me personally, my goal is, I want to be able to run around with my grandkids one day. I want to be able to, throw that baseball, and I want to be able to, be mobile at that time of my life. So I want to. I believe this practice and different forms of it. It doesn't even necessarily need to be this, right? I mean, anything, uh, movement in general. So um, I love that I'm able to express myself through this modality of movement.
I'm curious, like, is this considered a spiritual art? Um, and how did it get from a weapon that was used in, ancient Persia and went to spirituality?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, anything, I truly believe anything can be spiritual, right? Like, I mean, I grew up in, uh, Catholic household, and,
Mm.
um, and with the Catholic schools and things like that, right? Like, uh, I always believed that I don't necessarily need to go to a physical place to worship God, right? Like sometimes I found myself in nature, feeling like that was like a true, like, I feel like you can also, praise God in nature as well, right? Like, um,
Absolutely.
you know, and you go dig into the history of the mace, or the gada.
Yeah.
Um, Hanuman has a gada. In almost every single Hanuman, there's the Hindu god.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, the monkey god, and
okay.
in almost every single depiction of him, he has this big golden gada, and
Was it
it's a
considered
fun.
spiritual then?
I mean, I think I think I think there's a lot of spiritual deities that have weapons, right? Or of some sort, or we go into the Bible even, they're talking about the armor of God, and the things that relating to a weapon, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, at that time, that might have been the main hand-to-hand combat on the field weapon that they were using, right? Swords
Yeah.
obviously came around late. um, arrows and all that other stuff. So what used to be a tool or a weapon on an actual battlefield, within this practice allows us to take that battle from within, that battle that we all go through within. And
Yeah.
anyone, I believe, that has ever been through any sort of a spiritual um, awakening or an awareness of that side to them, when they're starting to really find that thing that calls them. Um, you're it usually is preceded by something that might have been a little dark. I believe they call the dark night of the soul, right? Where things seem off the rails, lost even, right? And um, so I think it's a good symbol, to be able to handle a lot of those things that are happening internally, especially for
Yeah.
those that are not afraid to face it. And there are times where I'm in this practice, and there are movements where I feel powerful. I feel like a warrior. And there's moments where I'm able to feel a little bit more into emotion also, go a little bit slower, uh, get on the ground, get some body weight stuff within a single flow. And no matter which way you choose to utilize a steel mace, it could be through the flow art of steel mace flow, or it could be primarily with just regular swings. Oftentimes, they call it runners even, right? Like if you're a runner, you're familiar with the runner's high, right? Where it's like that feeling of just intense euphoria because your body's releasing and moving so much energy, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to, running is like you're running, right? You're really just with your thoughts. Uh, especially if you don't have, something in your ears, which most people do, which is, something I do for sure. Uh, music's a massive part of the experience of working out in general, right?
Hmm.
Um, so, so how I like to describe it is, I don't, rather than working out, I love the concept of working in, where we're taking external movement and internal movement and trying to meet it right in the middle. Um, and from a spiritual perspective, um, I believe, that's something that is a connection to the divine, no matter the belief structure, or no matter what the religion. I believe that through these bodies that we have, this mind that we have, the experiences that we've had, that have led up to this point. Um, you know, through movement, you're really able to bring a lot of those things out, right? And,
Yeah.
you know, and I believe everyone I've ever met that's ever been so disciplined to uh, any sort of uh, any sort of structure or um, you know, ways of being. There's so many different methods, but you know, if it works for them, it's that's great. You know, if you're able to find grace through that, that's fantastic. Um, you know, there's moments where with Steel Mace Flow, I absolutely find that's a state of grace. I've been able to flow. Man, one night I was in Tulum uh, with my buddy. I went to go visit him in Tulum, and not even the nighttime, right? Like during the day, the whole day was insane. But I went to go visit him and not in Tulum, but Playa del Carmen first. Then we traveled to Tulum for a night, and it was just a weird thing where my worlds converged. You know, I've been playing tennis my entire life, and you know, I'm a tennis coach now also. But my tennis coach lived in Tulum, so we got to stay at his place. You know, got to catch up. Like this is my tennis coach from prime time, like traumatic teenage years part of my life, right? Like this coach, like he was the guy that held it down for me at that time, you know, like that real like someone I looked up to, you know.
Hmm.
Um and uh he gave us a space to be able to, you know, sleep for the night. And you know, we were exploring that day. I got to go to one of the ruins that was there in Tulum. You know, I think it's the descending god temple there in Tulum, and overlooked the cliff, beautiful landscape. Um, but I was like, oh man, I gotta flow there, you know, like I gotta get my mace in there. But we had to go through tickets, we got to go through security check, all this stuff,
Well,
right?
what? I can't even imagine with a
Uh,
steel mace, like how you explain that.
so I have the steel mace, right? Yeah. So I have the steel mace, and uh, I'm thinking of things to like, you know, do this, you know, because I mean, I am Mexican. I'm part Mexican. That's my the land of my father uh is in Mexico, right? So um the moment I set foot on that land in general, there's just this electricity that just went up my from the ground up, and uh very, very powerful place in general. You know, I felt like, you know, when you're tuned in and you're there, like it's just like things just happen. Like you want something, like it just like appears almost, you know. Uh, so anyway, I was there, and man, I really love to get some video of me flowing right in front of this temple. It's Mayan temple, and uh, so I'm thinking of ways I could do, because the way I was carrying it, because typically the way you're going to carry it is a position called back rack. You know, this is usually like if you're walking a distance, usually you'll probably carry like this. Um, at least that's the way I carry it, right? So this is too obvious. You know, they're not going to want someone to bring in, because I mean it can be a weapon still, right? It is definitely very much that uh
Mhm.
has that capability of battering something, right? So they don't want anyone bringing like that, something like that around rocks that are from ancient Mayan civilization, right? So uh so I'm thinking, I was like, oh man, what would I do? So I remember when we were in line for the tickets, I'm sitting here like, you know, the peanut guy, you know, the peanuts, like has that top hat and he's just like this,
Oh yeah,
you know, Mr. Peanut, right?
yeah.
Uh, I was just using it as a walking stick. I was using it as a walking stick, pretending it was a walking stick, buying the ticket. And when I went through the security at the time, it was what, 2021. Yeah, it was 2021, summer 2021. And he was just looking at everyone's mask, make sure everyone had a mask on. So I
Uh,
kept it in what we call back body bottom. He was over here. He didn't see. He was just looking at my mask, but he didn't actually see the mace. So I was able to get it in to the grounds and to be able to just to be able to flow there. And that was really the trip where I opened up into a real flow with the mace. That up until that point, I was doing a lot of reps and working on my technique, things a tennis coach would do, right? Just really focus on the fundamentals. Excuse me. And uh, that trip, man, really that moment, I just started like had some stuff prepared and then but that was the first time I really just opened up into not like moves that weren't planned, that weren't pre-planned, non-choreographed moves. And
mhm,
to be able to do it on that land, I'm thinking like, man, if there's, I'm supposedly I have Aztec, in me, right? Which is also like uh, came through Mayan blood as well, right? So it's like, how many generations has it been where I was where the last in my line danced here or had any sort of celebration here, right? Or moved ecstatically at all here, right? Like those
mhm.
were like ritual days where they were doing that, right? And so
Yeah,
I'm on these grounds and I'm feeling this energy and the wind is kicking up and it's moving through me. Uh that's going to be always one of the probably top three favorite things I've ever done in my life. Like it
that's
was
pretty
it
cool.
was so powerful. So, but oddly enough, that night we went back to that space and uh my coach went to bed and me and my buddy stayed up and there was a cenote tub because all their water comes from cenotes in Tulum. And it was also the night of the pink blood moon, full moon, in May 2021. So the moon was gorgeous, dude. It was insane. It was gorgeous that night. Everything looked like a canvas. Clouds scattered in the sky. And that's it, man. That's the second time. It was like 1 in the morning. Had some drinks, things like that. But that was probably the second time I really just like no plan. I'm just gonna do the stuff that I know. And under that moon, under those, being on that land, and that was one of the most that was one of the most spiritual moments in my life. But one of the most impactful for sure. Uh, I really started focusing on my ancestors uh, and that's how this started, right? This started with me honoring my mother, right? So when we're going through, I think any sort of spiritual practice, I mean, I think the West has lost that, to be honest with you. One of the things they've lost is honoring the ancestors, right? Here in the
Mm,
States, we don't really have a practice like that, right? Where there's a lot of civilizations where they're so revered and honored at some point, right? Like Day of the Dead in Mexico, for instance, right? Where
yeah,
they're have all the pictures and they have all the uh they really the practice is to honor that day and honor them, and to be able to do that uh in my own way using a steel mace. That day was yeah that day was super powerful. um and yeah, I'll never forget that day for sure.
that's amazing. Wow. It's just as you were talking, and I was just kind of feeling into like all the thoughts and energies that I feel connected to the steel mace. Especially when you were talking about like the Hindu god. I can't remember the name. Like that it's
Hanuman.
connected to. Yeah, it's like connected to, well, one, you said two different things in regards to this. You used the word tool and you used the word weapon. Now, it's interesting because it's like, you know, we often think, oh, weapon, blah, blah, blah. Things are tools, right? And it's all on like how you use them. And when you brought in, like more of a royal type of energy, because, the god is connected to, something majestic, right? I started to think about two different things. I started thinking about like Archangel Michael and his sword and like the
Mm,
warrior, but like he's a holy warrior, right? And it's a tool and it's a sword of truth. Um, and then the other aspect was because when you started talking about the armor of God, that kind of came through. But then I started
mm,
thinking about, like the whole King Arthur or anything really having to do with like Lord of the Rings. You think about uh what is his name? Aragon? Aragon? Aragon?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Aragon. God, I haven't
Right
watched
there,
it for years.
the King of Gauntlet.
Yes, the King of Gondor.
Yeah,
And how humble of a man he was. But when he picked up his sword, it was with honor that he did so.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it wasn't to like if you were to, you know, like use it as a tool, but it may have killed someone. It was with purpose, but it was with honor that he was bringing to his kingdom because there was something that was unjust in front of him, you know?
yeah. Mhm.
And so it's like, and when we talk about like Aries energy, there's so many different energies connected with Aries. And then you look at like what the integration is between Aries and Libra, because naturally the two are always talking to each other. You have the Aries that wants to take the inspired action, but it also needs the strategy and to be able to use thought in the process. And like when we think about war and the art of war, which I've mentioned to you, there were rules to
Yeah.
war. There still is. We just tend to think like we I don't know. I feel like this day and age we don't understand what war is and how it was and what how sacred it actually was. Cuz there was an art form to it and it
Yeah.
was almost poetic, you know?
Mhm.
And there was like honor in it. And you had to have strategy. There was different ways to go about things to obtain your mission. And there was the
Right.
mission involved. And it's very interesting like to really tap into those energies. And I liked also what you said in regards to how what's going on outside of you and what's going on inside of you and meeting the two. I would love for you to talk more about that in regards to this art form.
Yeah, I mean, man, when you brought up the art of war, one of my favorite lines is in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. And uh, that's is that not true about life also, right? And our day to day things, the things we have going on, things that are very real in our lives. For some people, maybe their work. For some people, maybe their home. They really just everyone's story is different, right? And, um, it, it's being able to get in the space of Aries was really interesting for me personally.
Mm,
Because within the modality that I do, Steel Mace Flow, you're able to just go into that thought process and really like embody through movement and a weapon. And, this tool that you're wielding, and there are certain flavors that come out of that. For me, it was a very powerful took a lot of very powerful stances. There's moves called battle stance. Battle stance pops up a lot in there. Uh, but also, thinking about because I let me say I am a Libra, and my sun sign is Libra, so it's very it was very fitting for uh to be in that space of Aries within myself, right?
Yeah.
So I was also able to, really focus on the innocence of the sign as well, and
Mm,
the the softness of it as well, and it really is such a dynamic sign that can put you in so many different aspects, but also balance as well, right? And um, I always say with the mace that it's really fun when you think about the yin and the yang, the yin movement, yang movement. Yang is a little bit more. There's a little more resistance to it, right? And
hmm
there's a bit uh, more of a dynamic movement associated with it. But yin movement, which is yoga, is it can be very yin. There's a lot of tai chi can be very yin, and tai chi could also be very yang, and as can yoga as well. But they have that element within the yin of grounding, and a little bit more static holds and slower movement to emphasize an emotion. Uh, all of those things are present within Steel Mace Flow practice. So, um, but to be able to utilize those energies of Aries, man, like that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun to explore.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited to embody these energies through this modality. Um, I will say for me, it's been kind of difficult to work out my arms and chest areas and things like that. Um, I don't know, like I feel like the best way I did that actually was through this modality when you taught me like how to do this, and I'm like, oh, interesting. And you do just you can just take it on the go, and I'm like, oh wow. So like now that I have the link, I'm actually yeah, I'm gonna get one of those so that I'm ready and prepared for the class.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
had to think about that, but like I would like to actually implement this in my at least once a week, you know, like playing around with it because I feel like there's something about working out the physical body but also tapping into like the inner world in that way. I just don't really vibe with going to the gym. Like, like I'm more of like very action based. Like I would be like, oh, let's do an activity so that I can pretend like I don't even know that I'm working out right now. Go
Yeah,
to the batting cages. Like give me a task or some
yeah.
type of thing because my brain will be like going to the gym. Ah, no. Give me like I will say there was a class once that kicked my butt. You ever done a Budokan yoga class?
I have not, but oddly enough, my Steel Mace Flow coach, um, he does those. I think he's part of a group and everything, online community. But I think he's been to a couple retreats that are just strictly Budokan yoga. But I've heard I heard that's intense.
Oh my goodness. Like you literally act out animals in the class. You're constantly going from one stance to another in a very physical way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
you're
mean, it's very primal.
it was very primal. And
Yeah.
oh, that's something also that I wanted to share that I just noticed I had a realization of. I mean, I guess here and there I've had it, but it really just came full force. The word war, flipping it, it's raw, raw energies.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm
Love that.
like, whoa. I mean, that's really it. Working with the raw energies. And you think about like Aries, is the beginning of the zodiac cycle, like the different seasonal cycle. And naturally, at the beginning of anything, you get the raw.
Yeah.
You get the raw.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Love that. Love that.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
well,
it's what's more
yeah,
raw than like than blood, right? Like, which is, that's what isn't that like that's like the symbol for strength and wisdom, which is very um my understanding of the Aries is part of the archetype, for it as well. There's just so many different energies and powers present within
yeah,
that Aries symbol, or intention, right? Like, I mean, many of the warriors from many warrior. I mean, to be a warrior, a true warrior, like there is a certain amount of wisdom that comes with that, right? Like there's
yeah,
certainly a discipline, right? I mean, the things that you experience through uh being any sort of warrior, whether it's a physical warrior or you know, that spiritual warrior, uh, usually is hard, is difficult to bear, right?
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I mean, speaking of that raw, right? Like what's coming to my mind is, like it, like the rawest form of us physically, like is our blood, right? Like
yeah,
it's really interesting, man. This is the see, this sort of thing is what comes up when you're focusing on Aries and Steel Mace Flow, right? Like that's just like you're allowing a space of that that thought,
yeah,
and then that's uh that's what's really, my uh I think it's really important for coaches to also have their coaches as well, right? So
yeah,
my coach, uh Jeffery Ochs, he's re his whole thing is the intention and flow, and I think those two things come hand in hand, right? Uh, with but we want to have an intention for everything that we do, right?
yeah,
Especially if we're trying to focus on building up our bodies, or healing from an injury, right? That's the intention right there. That's the raw intention right there, behind any sort of physical activity. Um, so but when you dive into different intentions, archetypes, and uh anything, man. I mean, because it can be also be a great meditation. You get lost. Any sort of flow, you're flowing at anything. People flow with cooking, right? Like, I mean, flow, that transient hypofrontality, which is what happens in the brain, it can happen at any time, right? Like it happen to you at
hmm
work where you just like, or you're talking to someone. Like I found it initially started coming to me when I'm talking to people at work or any sort of professional setting. And as a coach, I remember I was just like, I would run through explaining a drill to my students and uh, having left it and just not remembered like what happened. It was just like a blur, right? It was like you black
Yeah.
out almost, but you're killing it. Like everything, like you knew you left it being like uh, a good breakdown or a good entertaining thing. A lot of
Yeah.
actors, musicians, they play guitar solo if they're improvising. They may not be able to play that as exact notes for you back again, right? Like you have all those, especially in the 70s, you had all these guitarists who never played the same solo. They were just, doing their thing all the time, right? 20-minute
Yeah.
drum solos. So those are all very unique, right? And uh, you're writing a song, right? There's intention there.
Yeah.
Songwriting has flow aspects to it too. Anyone who does any sort of poetry uh, also can experience flow, right? It
Yeah.
happens so much, and to be able to do it through movement and resistance training, the yin and the yang, uh, really, really has helped me uh, get back on track and feel good in my body, feel mobile to I want to be able to do all the stuff, man, as long as I can, as long as I'm
Yeah.
here. I think that's a beautiful intention too. I think most
Yeah.
people have that intention. But and it's a Sanskrit saying, tatvamasi. I am that too. Uh, sometimes we lose our way, and sometimes we get off of something that we knew was helping, right, or making us feel good, for different reasons,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Have total compassion with yourself about that. But at the end of the day, being able to get back there, that's all part of the journey. It's
Hmm.
all part of the journey. We have some step back. Uh, we feel like we're taking a step back in life, and really what we're doing is taking a step back to move to the side to go another direction. So
Yeah.
uh, so that's the sometimes we don't know, but it always seems to work out too, right? It always seems to work
Yeah.
out. It works itself out in a lot of ways. So I like to be able to alchemize a lot of that stuff with this tool. Um, and oftentimes it is that, man, something I'm wrestling with inside, or I'm really pissed off for whatever reason. Go move it out. Sometimes it's like a little 5-minute thing. I can just grab it real quick and do something within the means of my body, how warmed up it is or not. Because the most important part of it is the functionality, right?
Yeah.
Uh, just like that warrior, going out in a battle. If their bodies are cold, they're not going to be moving as well. But if they're nice and warmed up and their bodies are limber, they're ready to go, that's going to make them better on the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
So I believe any sort of practice where you can find that state of grace. Uh, I think that's whatever it is. Um, you know, keep it in your life as much as you can.
Yeah.
I just had my second child 5 weeks
Mazel
ago.
tov.
Yeah, yep. Wow, 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 wow. But she so with that territory, you're in the hospital and you're doing all this stuff, life is just like completely changes. Still finding that time to do your personal practice may seem challenging. You're moving away somewhere, you could get off your rhythm, and if you're anything like me, sometimes any sort of little change can offset that rhythm, right?
Mm,
Especially if you're trying to build it into a habit. Uh,
right.
on the road to your 10,000 hours, right? Uh, so that part, I love how the Steel Mace is just so accessible. I don't need to get in my car. I don't need to go drive somewhere. Literally anything I need to do is right here in this stick. um, but it accompanies a lot of great things. It accompanies martial arts really well. It accompanies um, uh, uh, yoga very well. It accompanies conventional workouts very well. Also, it is a
Yeah,
mobility tool. So, uh, that's what's so fun about it. Part of what's so fun about it.
I love that. So I want to I love something that you said, and I want to like kind of bring that full circle for us for anyone who is just coming on to this podcast and never heard of the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series. I'm gonna kind of reinforce what we're doing here and why is all this happening, right? So like you mentioned like every coach should have their own coach, right? So like the step right before this, is Capricorn, which we actually are going to have like a business coaching session right before this. I want to bring this full circle and start at the zero. So like we start off this entire series with setting an intention. And part of that is harnessing our sacred space, realizing that there is a difference between the chaos, you know, and the sacred space. We have to have that boundary. And when we put that intention in there, we're essentially carving that out and also taking some type of action steps to actually have that sacred space for ourselves, whether that's time or an actual space, whatever our intention is. And then connecting higher, going above ourselves, connecting to the source of all creation. And when we do that, we start to flow that divine energy through us and allow for that creative spark to come out of us, which is, again, like we went from that sacred space Scorpio energy into the Leo and shining that heart, getting the creative being involved. And then we drop it down into the soul, which is finding, you know, like the rhythm, the vibration, the feeling, which is Cancer. And when we put that in perspective with our intention, like essentially we're getting lit up about whatever it is, and like we feel it and we want to do something with it. We want to create a habit, a ritual, some type of thing. And then like, you know, throughout that process, sometimes we're like, oh man, I messed up. Like I didn't do day two, or like I get down and it's like that comes in with the belief system. Like, all right, what do we need to change something with our belief system? Like, let's radiate that even higher and to where anything we need to change with that, then we can expand. And that's Sagittarius. And
Oh,
then we like shake that up, right? Like sometimes like we have to Aquarius is such an interesting thing. It's like we could do the same thing over and over and over again. And if it's not the right like sequence, then we're just going to create this insanity, right? So if it's something that we need to actually shift or change, then we allow for new outcomes to happen. And so that really comes with like the previous step, that mindset, changing our belief system. And once we've done that and we've made that slight change to be able to get on the right frequency, we can maybe even share that with someone else in a group and have some accountability. And then we all are like being lifted up. And as we do that, you know, we we also get to Gemini, which is the communication aspect, that we've just changed a lot about our own patterns and things like that. And now we're fully ready to communicate what we want with the universe. And it's clear. It's crystal clear at this point. We got the mindset involved, everything, right? The heart, the soul. And then we harmonize it. We balance it out. Because I don't know about you, but Scorpio likes to go all or nothing. And sometimes it's like you kind of have to like alchemize that a little bit to see like, how can I do this in a flowed way? Which also is like, can I allow myself to receive? Which is that balance point in regards to Aries, right? So then we get through like this energy of like allowing ourselves to receive, and we go into Pisces and we go even more beyond into the ether, the spirituality of it, and we clear out any energetic junk that no longer serves us. And that also comes with faith, that also comes in understandings, and it also comes with compassion for ourself, others, and the process itself. And then we get to Capricorn, where we've done a lot of work, and now it's decision time of what's right for us. And when we do identify what is right for us, we make a commitment, and we've now started to lay the building blocks, the foundation for the path ahead of us. And that
Yeah.
right there, like we're doing like be the CEO of our own life kind of energy that comes with the coaches in our life, that comes with, we've had to identify that we needed to change and shift some things, but then we really start to go in on it and do the hard work. The goat is like, like really into doing those things. And it completely, I don't know, you ever see a goat climb a mountain? It doesn't even realize it's freaking doing it. It gets into the like, it starts
Yeah, they're
getting into
insane.
that flow state.
That's wild. Yeah, I mean
And
that's wild. That's wild. That's evolution at its finest, man. That's just like that's generations and generations and generations of figuring that shit out, because that shit is like, I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Those are insane. I love that.
yeah. And so it's like, by the time we've like really, we kind of in Capricorn laid out some type of a strategy, you know, because we talked about it. And that's when that strategy gets put into place with Aries. And now we're like, all right, let's do it. Like, and you're that, like you said, that flow state. And then from there, that birthing process comes out with Taurus. You start to see things because you're doing it. You're taking action. And it's not like the action, that it's like you force things. I mean, you can do that and it doesn't work out always, but it's like getting to that harmonious state of what you're talking about with that flow, like things like, I like what you said when you were in Mexico, right? Things just naturally came to you. You were in that flow state. You were connecting with your ancestors. You've like gotten to that point, and the universe is on your side. Like you're in a harmonious play. And then we reach that state as we've birthed this, we reach that state of like Virgo energy, which is embodiment, because we're doing it over and over and over again, you know? And so it's like I'm really excited to really harness this energy of what inspired action is and all the different aspects of what goes into the Aries energy. And we can do that literally through the Steel Mace flow. And so what I want to ask you is so our audience knows, what are we doing in that class? What do they need?
So, uh, yeah, so a typical class is going to be combined with yeah, just getting mobile, even moving without a mace at first. Just I like to touch on a lot of different parts of the body that we tend to neglect, quite frankly. And one of those is our hips, right? Like, I mean, our hips are doing a lot of work every single day, right? Um, and I think I find that vital. You don't quite know what you have until you lose it, right? That old expression. There's a lot of I have a lot of friends in the tennis world. It's really tennis can be very rough on the body. There's all those different cuts that you're making, quick agile cuts, and very limited amount of time to do it. That's a there's a lot of people with that have both injured their hips or in some way, shape, or form. But there's also people that will play to build up their hips, to make sure they're working it out. You find a lot of people with hip replacements, going back and playing tennis because it is also can be also very good for that as far as just moving like a full body experience.
Mm,
Uh, and steel mace is part of that, but with steel mace it's not through competition necessarily with another person. uh it's not uh, you know you're not necessarily reacting to something external, right? Like all you're doing is you're sitting with yourself, moving with yourself. You're very internal, so um So, so we go through those the warm up, and then we go through a series of building a flow. So there's going to be a flow that was written and choreographed, and the flow there's a lot of intention put into this flow. Actually, uh, Katriel was there during the birth of the beginnings of this film. I will say it has changed a bit, Katriel, from even when you saw it, but it's you were there in the Genesis, so it has your energy in it too. Uh,
yay.
uh, so, but we're gonna do a series of fragmented movements with repetition that will create a foundation ultimately for everybody. So we'll go through what we call flow foundations, going through the moves, and then towards the end of the session, we'll know all the moves and we'll put all the moves together into one sequenced flow. Uh, and we'll be able to move together with this intention that the flow was embodied from and where it is today, and you know what? Isn't that the same with us as people, right? Like
Yeah.
we had some sort of a genesis, whether it's an era of your life, those new beginnings, or you contemplate different stories from the past. Uh, you think about those, but all of those things create who you are right now. So this will be that this is part of the intention that it's going to be put into the steel based flow class.
I love that. So we need I'll put the link in there for the steel mace so that if you feel so inclined to get one, that's the tool for the class. And if for some reason they can use.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you don't you have any sort of stick, to be honest with you, if it's an offset
Like a
weight,
broom?
room would be a pretty decent thing. You're not gonna obviously have as much resistance, but I would suggest if you're able to purchase a mace, do so. Either a 7 pound or a 10 pound. I think that'll be proper. Again, I mean, just like what I almost did. Like I almost went with that. Oh, I'm gonna go heavy, and for a guy like me, I'm you it was plenty. 10 pound was plenty. So but it's also a great tool to have. They're only I think they're like certain companies will have in the mid to high 40s as far as money is concerned. So it's
Okay.
it's great because it's there. You can pick it up for 5 minutes when you're waiting for your food to heat in the oven. Like all the way up to traveling with it to the mountains somewhere, being able to flow on a mountain. The journey is uh, the journey these things have taken me on also has been physically, like, in the world, has been great. It's been great to connect with the community. There's a whole community that's dedicated to um, Mace art. So
Yeah.
uh, I'm really excited to be able to share it with you all in this space that has been created from the things that you're so passionate about. You're going through all of them. You're going through all the signs. I was like, "Ah, I love it when he does this."
I mean, like, this is like pure bliss for me. Like, ooh, we get to play with every single energy. And for me,
Yeah,
I get to do it
yeah,
like twice because I have the in-person class and the online.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
also, we have the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series journal, which can be purchased on Amazon for $22. And of course, if for some reason you can't get this, you can bring your own journal. But I worked really, really hard on this journal that literally has questions catered to every single class, both in person and online. And so they're really good reflection questions that as we're going through, this honestly, it's a kind of a fast-paced series, even though it's going through 3 months. You only have a week for each sign. And, being able to reflect um, on everything. That's why we're going to repeat this series at the second half of the year. And we're all really going to need that because I know I will. And I'm going to be writing a bunch of things down. I'm like, oh, wait, got to have that now. And like, because when we put something down on paper, it starts to click in, you know? And also we get to see it later and we're like, "Oh my gosh, I've grown so much," or I want to do that still." Like whatever you put down. I mean, I look at my journals and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like it's insane to see one how much I've accomplished and two things that I still have yet to do that I still want to implement. So it's really good to track your journey. And our class is in a couple weeks. It is on, let's see here, Wednesday, March 27th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. It is $25. And if for some reason there's a time thing going on, oh, Eastern Standard Time, guys. And if for some reason you aren't able to appear on person, it is recorded. But we would love to have you here with us because that's just more fun, I feel. Uh, is there anything else you'd like to share in regards to the class?
No, I think that's about it. Again, this is become a passion of mine to share this with more people in this area. Because selfishly, I would love to, uh, this art grew so much online. You got this whole online community that you're talking to because most of the classes all going through online, and there is a beautiful magic to being able to flow together.
Mm.
Uh, whether it's an online space, but definitely in a personal space. So, I've been giving classes for almost 2 years now in my area. I live in Sarasota, and expanding a bit to St. Pete as well. I give classes, the Roots to Crown in St. Petersburg. Um,
And what days
but
are those?
Saturdays at 11. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now it's at a bi-weekly time, but that's most likely going to be expanding to weekly. So give me a follow. My Instagram handles bad guy underscore movement on Instagram, and that space is completely dedicated to my Steel Mace Flow journey, and different events that I have going on there as well. So, but to be able to share this online through this lens is going to be very unique, and this whole series is extremely unique, and it allows any practitioner to be able to embody uh, the sign, and to be able to work it out through the different zodiacs. The different events that I've been a part of thus far have been very mind opening.
Mm,
Definitely give me a lot to think about. And I think most people who can consider themselves seekers can relate to that.
mm.
To be able to um, to find meaning, in these different spaces. And thank you so much for supplying that and creating
Absolutely,
a
man.
space to be for anyone who is going to be joining any class uh, to focus on.
I love that. Thank you. Um, I'm just so honored to have you here. I thank you so much for being a part of this series. And
Yeah, thank you.
you can find all of information about Julio, like everything he said, plus on my website at energyspeaksbycatriel.com, online series under the classes tab. And it has all of his information where the practitioners are. And also you can find this event, or you can find this event under the events part of the website, but it will also be on here. If you enjoyed this podcast, um, Energy Speaks podcast, I please share it with someone. There's some ancient wisdom in here, and it's great to grow community. So I love you all, divine, beautiful souls. And that is today's episode with Aries. So let's go take some
Woo!
inspired action and join us for the class.